played it very, very, very well indeed.
No more slices for you.
Oh, look at that for judgment.
You'll learn.
Hello, welcome to Slice. This may sound like your regularly scheduled broadcast on a Monday afternoon. Indeed it is. We're trying to mimic that, but we are recording a little bit early because right now I'm on my way to winning a golf tour in France for the first time. It's my goal in 1 week's time. If you watch on YouTube, I'll be wearing our Nairobi green jacket. That's the ambition. But for now, while that means we can't discuss the Soudal Open, hopefully, Jacob Skov-Olesen has won that, or the Charles Schwab Challenge, it does mean we're able to chat to Dottie Pepper, two-time major champion, 17-time LPGA winner, and now on-course reporter for CBS. Dottie, nice to meet you, first of all, but thanks for coming to join us.
This will be fun. Thank you, guys.
So you've had a few days to digest the PGA now, Dottie, as we all have. Golf doesn't really pause, does it, for us to take stock? But have you been able to do so after Scottie Scheffler's performance and the way he went about winning that tournament?
I think I'm still digesting the Masters, let alone the PGA.
Tell me about it.
Those were two wild rides, wild walks with just drama and head shaking, and then all of a sudden both ships were righted, and it was great theater, and the guy is just, when he gets a taste of it, he just doesn't let go, does he?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't.
No.
Well, by now he might have won a hat-trick, of course, at Colonial, but we'll see. But I mean, those
Right.
first few holes, Dottie, on Sunday, he definitely didn't have it, did he? Yeah, it wasn't
No.
as dramatic as what happened to Rory at the Masters, which we'll come on to, but he definitely didn't have it. Is it as calm in that situation as it looks from the outside? You're right up close to him. Is it business as usual, on to the next shot? Because other golfers, I think we'd have watched them thinking, well, this guy's going to struggle today. And obviously Scottie went on to win by 5.
I think it was business as usual. But we hadn't seen business as usual earlier in the season from him. There was emotion that we didn't usually see from Scottie. So I was kind of prepared for that, but it never happened. I thought the interesting thing was, and I did report this early on, maybe on the third tee, that yeah, I'm pretty close to Randy Smith, his teacher. He reminds me so much of my mentor, George Pulver. And we have this, we text back and forth, and we always chat on the range. And I said, Randy, how you doing? He says, I'm nervous. And I was like, nervous for Scottie? He says, no, I need a tranquilizer. He said, I'm a mess. So maybe he sensed that something wasn't quite, or it's just the way he reacted. But it was such a hard reset on the 10th tee. And as it turns out, Ted Scott told Scottie, just square up your shoulders a little bit. Let's go with that. And all of a sudden the pulls turned into missiles. And that was it. But that's what great champions do. They can self-diagnose. They can kind of slow things down, make sense of it, and put the hammer down. And that's exactly what he did.
You mentioned Ted Scott there. I hadn't heard that before. I mean, to some extent, a great caddy's job is to stay sort of out of the way and to remain anonymous. And we'll come on to Harry Diamond, who's doing a really good job of that. But Ted Scott's obviously had a huge impact. How often does that sort of thing happen? Because we don't see it from the outside. And obviously in Harry's case, there's been a lot of criticism of him over the last 10 years, but you're right close to them. Is that a common thing to see someone like Ted Scott stepping in? Does it almost like raise an alarm bell that he had to?
Scottie asked him. I mean, in the transcripts after, he said, what are you seeing something that's weird? And he said, well, they're just pulls. They're not diving hooks. They're not flares out to the right. So let's just square up our shoulders, work on our alignment. Those old basic fundamentals that are like, awful. But that's what worked. And there was a definite, when that ball came out of the window off the 10th tee, it was completely different than the tee shots that we'd seen. Other than the first tee shot there with this huge wind had come up. And I thought, well, we're going to be in for a long day. And he absolutely pipes it and then dumps it in the left, short bunker. And, then it was just a series of, I think he missed 7 shots just dead left from there into the ninth drive zone. So there was a repeatable pattern. So it seems like whatever needed to be fixed was probably going to be a blanket fix, and sure enough, it was.
Yeah, it was one of those, and you sort of said this, Dottie. Really, is the way that it's almost like when he smelt blood on the back nine.
Yeah.
It was like it was over at that point. It was
Yeah.
almost, you could sense it. There was just the momentum just shifted.
But
In
Sam,
very,
there
very
was a
quickly.
time there was a timing element to it that was definitely in Scottie's favor, because Rahm had an opportunity to make birdie at 12. And
Mhm.
those holes, if you look at the Quail Hollow map, are very close to each other. They run perpendicular to each other. The 10th green is running into the 12th fairway. And there's just a build out between for spectators. Scottie holed the putt at 10, and then Rahm missed right behind him. So he heard the roar and blanked.
Mm. Yeah.
So there was, and I think we did an okay job of covering it, but it's like we have 18 football fields going at the same time, and well, we were down to 9 football fields at that point, but it was the timing sequence of the noise and Scottie making and Rahm missing that was really consequential when it all turned out.
Yeah. I mean, that's something I suppose we don't really hear on sort of TV coverage. You don't sort of hear that noise. You hear the noise kind of individually, but you don't
Hmm.
hear it sequentially like that. So,
Yeah,
whereas I suppose certainly at Augusta, particularly, I suppose you have
right.
that. You're hearing these huge roars and groans and things, and you're almost getting a kind of dialogue of what's going on just from that
Hmm.
alone.
Right,
Um,
right.
and actually, that leads on to my next question, which is we're going to go back to the Masters now. Obviously, so you had a front row seat to what's one of the most famous victories of all time, certainly in my
Yeah,
lifetime. How special was that from your perspective to sort of be there and up close to that moment?
it was extraordinary. Because there were times you wanted to say, "What are you thinking?" And then there were other times you just sat back and kind of quietly applauded, because it was so masterful, to steal that word, or Jim's masterpiece. He has his masterpiece. It was, the cool thing was, because of the way the timing of early rounds were, I actually got to be with Rory for a portion of Thursday and of Friday. So I was there for the meltdown on Thursday when he chipped the ball into the water at 15. Finished with those 2 doubles.
Hmm.
Um, and then to see him bounce back the way he did on Friday, that was clutch, absolutely clutch. And then literally from the first tee shot Saturday and again on Sunday, so I got to see basically all of it.
Yeah, and there was, I mean, one particular standout moment I think from me. There was this lovely moment where he found that little window on the seventh, didn't he? And he looked over at you and laughed. Have you got a sort of particularly close relationship with Rory? Because it felt like almost that that he sort of shook off all this kind of nervous energy at that point with that kind of interaction with you.
Um, I think it's a playful respect,
Right.
because and Saturday he had the mirror image of that shot, because he'd driven it right and found this window high, that was bigger than the window on Sunday, by the way, by about half again. But he
Mm.
fired it over the bunkers and hole high left, and managed to chip it up onto the plateau, and make 4 at 7 on Saturday. It's like, okay, that was pretty cool. That was risky, but that was cool. He really didn't. I shouldn't even say it was risky, because he didn't have another option other than chipping out.
Mm.
So if you launch it like that, he only had 9 iron in his hand. I think I'd have to go back and look. So you flip over to Sunday and he fires it left, and the other option is to go chip out to the right, which wasn't even easy either, or he's looking up, and Harry's looking up. And as he hits this shot, I mean, it was full tilt, hold face open as long as you possibly can, and it did clip one little bit of the pine tree, and it goes up there past the hole and comes back. And I just started laughing. And Harry says, "I was trying to tell him not to do that, but I was really glad he didn't listen to me." And Rory said, "Well, what's the big deal? It was the same thing I had yesterday." So it was a light moment in what turned out to be a pretty consequential time.
It's hard to contrast that and think that comes an hour before he chips or pitches the ball into Race Creek, right? And
Oh my God.
I
Yeah.
mean, And the shot itself, I suppose we could talk about all day, but like the atmosphere, do you feel that atmosphere change? And in terms of like Harry's role in that moment, I wouldn't know what to say. He doesn't say a lot at the best of times, does he? But he obviously said the
right
right
now.
things at the right times on that Sunday.
Yeah, I think yeah, Harry's taken some criticism, and I think sometimes you just got to get in Rory's face, which he doesn't do very often. He's very he's kind of like still water, but in that case, I think still water was good because you don't want to overinflame the situation. Everybody was without words for what just happened. He had made the early decision to make it into a three-shot hole. He hit 3 wood off the tee, laid up the 7-iron, beautiful angle. All he's got to do is dump it in the middle of the green, and everything feeds toward the hole. And then that thing happened. So I think that was not a moment for inflammation. That was a time to dial it down, and Harry was exactly right. And I think what he also said, which I just absolutely loved, was after he makes 5 at the 72nd hole, going to a playoff, you have to go get in sign your card, go through all of that rigmarole, get in a cart, go down to the 18th tee. And Harry said the most brilliant thing was, would you have taken this on Thursday morning? And the answer undoubtedly would have been yes. So let's flip the switch and get back in there and hit the tee shot that needs to be hit, and go on from there and see what we can do.
Two different resets, I guess. Yeah, Ted
Yeah,
Scott on 10
very much so.
and Harry's on 72nd. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
How would you, Dottie? We've talked about Scottie, we've talked about Rory now. How would you kind of sum up the difference between them and how they kind of operate on the course, having seen them up close, and in 2 big victories recently?
I think Rory is more apt to roll the dice than Scottie is. Scottie rolls the dice by the way he flights the golf ball into tough targets. So there was a caddy so Scottie, let me backtrack. Before the tournament at Pebble got started this year, Scottie played at Cyprus and talked to the kid that caddied for him. And he said, I've never seen anything like it, because he never really took on flags directly the way Rory does. He took a line and moved the golf ball toward it, took a line and moved it right, took a line and moved it left. So everything fed toward the hole. So there's a different flight pattern. There's a different artistry. They are both extraordinarily powerful. They're both definitely motivated to win. I mean, you don't want to get in their way, but Rory has this way of doing something that is just unpredictable, and then has that flair to recover.
Scottie, by everything everyone says who's seen him up close, like it would be easy not to think of him as an artist, but it's interesting that the way you describe him, it's very much artist, that he's seeing shots, and that's quite old-fashioned in some ways. You must see a lot of golfers who have one shot shape or have a more sort of monotonous way of playing the game, but he likes to see things.
He sees things, he feels things, and you also, if you're on the range, you never see what Randy Smith calls the drama box, the track man. It never shows up, and everybody else is out there with all their diagnostics and their team and all of that, and it's just Scottie, sometimes Randy. He's not there every week, and Ted Scott. That's it. It's pretty quiet. It's all workmanlike, and there's not a lot of busyness around them. Where a lot of other people, Bryson gets to the range last week, and he's got 4 people with him, 3 bags of toys. It's all just a big production, and some people's brains are wired for that sort of thing, but Scotty's certainly is not.
On Bryson, just briefly back to Augusta. From the outside, I guess when Rory went up against Patrick Reed in the final round 7 years ago, the sense was that it was an overwhelmingly pro-Rory crowd. That seems like a fair analysis of that. And there was a lot of discussion as to how it would be for the final round at Augusta. What was your perspective on it?
I'm going to let you guys read my Golf Digest piece.
That's absolutely fine.
About that.
I'm sorry I've not read it already.
It's online now, but it comes out in print later in a few days. But they were very different feelings of support. Kind of had the bro culture behind Bryson, and it was chirpy and lots of high fives and just big noise. And then there was sort of a organic this guy's supposed to win the Masters. We're here to watch Rory compete Grand Slam. There was very different, and it was interesting to hear the swings of the noise throughout the day. By the time we got to the second nine, Bryson hadn't quite responded back with Rory getting back on track. The way he got off to a really solid start, and then Rory came firing back. We had all those 2-shot swings early on. But Bryson wasn't able to keep that momentum going. So that part of the crowd really quieted down. And then you had Rosie making a huge move. So there was noise from ahead. So it got a little complicated. And it is also really fun being out there when the manual leaderboards. I can't imagine Augusta National without playing a Masters without the big old manual leaderboards, because there's literally, when they take the number down and what goes back up, the noise, whether it's completely neutral for a par, or the groan of a bogey, or the elation for a birdie or better. And that's what happened right after Rory had hit his tee shot at 16, because Rosie had pulled the putt at 18. We heard noise, but we didn't know exactly what it was. And there was a groan that was very much not anti-Justin, but pro Rory. Like, they're gonna mess with our story here.
I can't
I think
imagine
that was
that.
kind of my sense,
Yeah.
really, because Ben and I have talked about this on a previous episode, but I'm a huge fan of Justin Rose, and I really felt myself, and I don't know if other people felt like this. I suspect some people did, kind of conflicted at the end there, because you're kind of thinking, I can't root against Justin Rose here. This is he's a legend of the game. It's a huge deal for him as well. And yet somehow you're right. It felt like this was Rory's moment, and it felt like it had to happen for him at the same time. So it was a weird one, and it
I've
must have
heard
felt like that for the crowd.
the same sentiment. I got a text from Ian Pattinson, the captain of the RNA, exactly what you said. He said, I just couldn't. He said, I'm heartbroken that Rory that Justin didn't win. He said, but that was supposed to happen.
Mm.
Yeah, and it said that they were just, the looks on their faces after the playoff were just so, Justin laid it all out there and came up one shot short, and Rory's was more. There was a happiness to it, but I think there was a bigger sense of relief than anything else.
Yeah, you could sense that relief, couldn't you? Just when sort of dropping to his knees, and it was just outpouring of emotion. I'm going to ask about another player now. We've talked on some of the probably three of the biggest players in the game at the moment. I'm going to go for maybe the fourth, which is Xander. And there was a moment when he won last year's PGA Championship where he famously said to you, "Not today, not today, Dottie." I wanted to know. Can you tell us? I'm not sure we've ever really heard the story behind "Not Today," Dottie. Can you tell us?
So Colt Knost was in on this, as we call him, Coat. Because the way our old producer, Lance Barrow, with his Texas drawl, that's the way Colt came out, was Coat. So that's sort of stuck. And Colt will never let me forget that, because a lot of his pals that he plays golf with now in Phoenix still call him that. So it's stuck. But Monday of the PGA last year at Valhalla, Colt comes up on Xander hitting bunker shots. And he starts rolling video, Colt does, and says, "Xander, do you have anything to say to Dottie?" And he went off, because I had been with him at Quail Hollow during what was then the Wells Fargo for the two previous Sundays. 2 years straight away, he was in the last group and had gotten, caught from behind or coughed up the lead, one or the other. He got caught from behind, but nobody was going to catch Rory there in 24. I mean, I think he won by 5 or something crazy like that. So there was this, it was a colorful language that was involved in this. So I still have it on my phone, and we laugh about it. So flash forward to Sunday, and he makes the 5-footer to win. They're come to scoring, and Colt waits for Xander and rolls. The CBS is actually rolling tape now too, and catches it. And he says, "You got any message for Dottie today?" He says, "Not today, Dottie." Forgetting. So now, I'm texting back and forth with Xander, completely forgetting that I am not the Black Widow when all of this comes to be, him thinking I'm responsible for him not crossing the finish line. I walked in his first win at the Greenbrier. He was like, Oh, I forgot.
I
Maybe you're not so bad after all.
get the sense that Xander might be sort of underrated in terms of. I hear lots of people sort of on the inside say that he's a hilarious guy, and I don't know how
He
much we
is.
see of that, but is that true?
It's totally true. Totally true. I mean, he gave me that line on Sunday this past week. He was just go because of the or it was Saturday because of the delay. He was ended up playing about the same time as leaders did, going off on 10. And he walks up behind me as I'm going to the range. He goes, "Not today, Daddy." So he's genuine, and I thought it was really sad that he didn't basically get to play the first 25% of the schedule. We missed him.
Yeah.
Pure talent, personality, all of it. Golf's better with Xander and Schauffele around.
Yeah, and it feels like he's coming back. Like looking at his
Yeah.
kind of results, it doesn't feel far away that he's going to be back at the top
No,
again.
I would say, by the time he defends at the Open, he should be in beyond ready to go for him. Yeah, rounding into a good place. Yes.
Right, I'm going to ask you another slight tangent here, Dottie. But we witnessed quite the exchange on Twitter recently, where someone incorrectly accused you of pronouncing Ricky Castillo's name incorrectly. I want to know, like, how often does this sort of thing happen? Because I'm thinking it must be hard to bite your tongue sometimes when people are sort of criticizing things like that, especially when they're quite clearly in the wrong. Is it a regular thing?
Not not terrible,
Hmm.
but I do take it personally when somebody doubts my preparation, because I really pride myself on that. And I thought the interesting thing about that whole exchange was that I didn't say a word.
No, you just
All I
did
did was
just a picture.
I just screen grabbed screen grabbed the player notes. There's nothing else you need to do.
Yeah.
It's there in black and white, and it went on for days, Sam. I mean, my personal email on my website blew up. People accusing me of, are you not a professional enough to pronounce these names right? Don't you know that a double L comes out Y? I'm like, yeah, I did take Spanish all the way through college. Thank you very much. I know that. But you also know how the player wants their name pronounced. And that's what it was. I mean, when the coach from Florida, who had, that kid as a rock star there as a Gator, reaches out and said, "Thank you for doing that right." I mean, that meant a lot, because we were taking some pretty hard hits there. Colt mentioned it on the air. Frank mentioned it on the air. We're doing this properly. Give us a break.
Well, you've been
Yeah.
doing it for a long time, Dottie. Now the on-course stuff. How would you sum up what your job is in that role? Because obviously, it differs a lot from being in the booth, right, or in the tower, or whatever
Yeah.
it may be. But yeah,
Yeah.
how would you sum up what your job is to do?
Well, thank you for reminding me. It's been there for a long time. First of all, so this is year. I'll switch to year 22
Wow.
in July, in some form or another, whether it's studio, on course, 18th tower, whatever. I've worn a lot of hats, which I'm pretty proud of. That you can be that kind of utility player. You can do a lot of it. Um, I don't know. My role is to be additive to the pictures we're seeing, the story we're telling, not just to blither on about nonsense. To make something, tell the viewer something that they wouldn't otherwise be able to know. Like, that conversation that I had with Randy, nobody else would know about that. And I have a relationship with him that I know I'm not violating a personal bit of information. It was additive to setting the tone for the day. And I think that's my personal barometer, is to be over prepared. It's okay if only 1% of it, 5% of it gets on the air. I keep all those notes in Dropbox. They're there. They're not going to go away. But it's just additive and listening more than speaking, because your job really is to tie all the pieces together of your other commentators, the stories that are coming out. And if you can add to that something that they can't see sitting in the tower, then you've done a great job.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you miss? I'm intrigued. Do you miss the buzz of competing yourself when you're out there on kind of on course? I mean, I know it's it's a little while ago, but do you ever sort of think you miss the buzz? I'm guessing it's a different type of buzz.
This is the buzz, and it's really real. I get nervous before big events, Sundays. I mean, there's an adrenaline rush. Even when I'm putting my belt and my headset on, it's like, okay, we're clicking in. These are the things that have to happen for me to get ready to go play, to do my job, and that's very much the same. And you do still feel it. When I made the call at 15, I knew we nailed it, and I started to get a little teary with Rory at 15, and it was like, that's why I do this. So that was pretty special.
So, next question. So, obviously, we've talked about Scottie, we've talked about Rory, Bryson, Xander. Aside from kind of the very best in the world that you see all the time, you must see a lot of kind of rising stars, let's say, who aren't maybe household names yet. Is there anyone that's really caught your eye, over the last year or so, that we should look out for? Basically, you think this kid is really good?
I think Luke Clanton has the wherewithal to do something quickly once he turns professional. I mean, he's already threatened to win tournaments multiple times last year. Michael Thorbjornsen is absolutely elegant, and I think he is he hasn't gotten off to a rock star start, but he's there. Like, he got into the PGA, so he's doing the things that you make those steps up to be able to start kind of carving your teeth on big moments and getting them done. And he hasn't really put 3 or 4 rounds together when he's needed to, but I think he's going to be one to keep an eye on. Andrew Novak seems to have come out of nowhere this year, but not really. He was making all those same progressions that we talk about with Thorbjornsen. He just started a little bit later, went to a smaller school, not as much hype and rah-rah coming out. Yeah, those are the 3 I would say, really have a chance to continue to do something great.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And Thorbjornsen particularly, I mean, he definitely he did a lot last week to sort of prove, that he's got everything.
You bet.
Obviously
bet.
in the end, I don't know, I'm not sure exactly where he finished on Sunday, but certainly there were times where he was really not far away from the lead, and you kind of thought,
Yeah.
okay, he probably has got pretty much everything he needs.
Agreed.
So,
Yeah.
We're going to change topic a little bit here. So, very general thing. So the PGA Tour as a whole. I mean, there's been a lot of talk, about reunification. I hate that word, but there's been a lot of talk about it. I'm intrigued to know whether you believe there's a need for it, because it feels to me like there's maybe been a shift for certain people from going like, oh, we have to get everyone back together, or whatever the word is, to actually, can we just, coexist peacefully?
I think we're that we're the latter. I think right now I feel like both tours are kind of doing what they want to do. And if we can figure out a way to maybe get the best players together a couple more times during the year, is it too much like tennis? I don't know, where everybody's scattered and playing at different levels of tours and different events, different A, B, C level events. Do we throw in more chances for open qualifying so that all those players can qualify their way into these bigger events? I don't have the answers, but I know that it seems to be just kind of plugging along right now, and I'm not too worried about it. I know back in June 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I was beside myself. I just couldn't believe and I wasn't alone. I couldn't. Just the sheer surprise of it, I think, caught so many people off guard that it was just inflammatory. Just because it was so harsh and it was so quick and so unseen that I mean, I took off in my car and I went for a 230-mile ride that Saturday afternoon. I was like, I just need to go clear my head, because I just, there was so much, and there was so much rumor, and there, who's going and who's staying, and they're not coming back to the PGA Tour, and this, everybody's going to be playing over in the Middle East, and there were so many things that were unsettling that I just need to get away from this for a few hours and kind of digest what I felt more than anything else.
I think they're the day John Rahm left and the day that they did the deal. I think I genuinely will always remember where I was on those days, which is
That's
crazy, isn't it?
interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
The way things went for those 18 months.
Yep.
Just one other sort of topical issue, I suppose, Dottie. It never goes away. Is slow play, and I know you were quite. A lot of people, I think, were quite impressed with how honest you were on air at the beginning of the year. I want to say the Farmers, but forgive me if that's not the right tournament.
It was.
Tell us again where you stand on slow play, because there will be some people who aren't aware of what you said that day.
Well, I'm gonna pull up my photos from that day, because it wasn't just me. It was a conversation that had been going on internally in our home, but it was also, we talk about things in breaks in television. I got this 2.5 minute window of, who's doing what's coming up, and whatever. And Frank Nobilo sends me this note, and I'm getting ready to call tee shots at 10. We've just come back from a break, and he says, "Don't want to blindside you, but they teed off at 11:11. Will be nearly 3 hours to the turn. I might mention it." And I threw back a thumbs up, and I said, "I have an opinion and a new word to put on the situation." And it was as organic as that. But we've been talking about it, and what are the kids are emulating what the professionals are doing. Seve was posted on my wall as a kid. I mean, I wanted to be like Seve Ballesteros. They're emulating that. They're seeing players just standing around, aim pointing from 1.5 feet. People out at the tournaments are looking around like, if I did this at home, I'd be getting a letter from the club president, or I'd have the ranger coming up on us and saying, you got to move along. Come on, we got to go. But then you get to professional golf, and none of that seems to be enforced or even really mentioned. So I think it was just time to talk about the one thing we can't create more of, and that's time, and being respectful of everybody's time, whether they're watching television, whether they're on site, whether they're looking up to their idols, their heroes, all of that. And I think that's the word that maybe triggered it. So it wasn't inflammatory. It was just, we've got to do better. And the PGA Tour saying, which I didn't know, they've had all this data from ShotLink. They know exactly who's slow and where they should be on the golf course, and who's actually very efficient about playing. So I don't think this needs to be a one-way conversation. It's about who does a really good job of being organized and playing along at a good pace. And it just kind of took off from there, and thankfully it's gotten better. But I think it also needs to happen for amateur golf and for college golf. College golf in America, it is like watching paint dry. The kids they don't carry their own umbrellas. They've got the push trolleys. It's like, stop, just go back to playing golf, to go back to playing what got you there and how you got there. And all of a sudden they get to college, and the bottom falls out, and then they have to pick it back up again, and it seems like they're in a foreign land.
Yeah. Well,
interesting that it's changed, isn't it? Like that it's already changing. Hopefully in 5 months, because it seems the one thing in golf that like everyone can unite behind, because there's so
That's
much
well said.
fracture, isn't there? Yeah,
That's really well said. Yeah.
Another change of topic, Dottie, from the ridiculous to the sublime. We're going to talk about Ryder Cup. Now, I gave you a bit of an advance warning on this one, but
You did.
We would like you, if you can, as of today.
So I'm putting my glasses on for this one. I'm serious about this. Yeah.
Yep. We want you to pick your 12 US players that you would take to Bethpage Black this
So
year.
I'm gonna throw this one back to you. I was like, who would you like to sing about?
Oh.
So as I pulled this up yesterday, it looks like there are 6 players that have locked up. They mathematically can't be eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
We know Scottie's at the top of the list. Those 6 players are Scottie Scheffler, Xander Schauffele, Bryson, Justin Thomas, Colin Morikawa, and Russell Henley. who I think got a lot of positive experience last year with the President's Cup in Montreal.
Absolutely.
And I'm, the way he finished down the stretch at Bay Hill, winning at the API was rock solid.
Yep.
My next guys is Harris English is 7th. He is on my team for sure. Daniel Berger. That guy would drink out of a water hose to go play. And I think he's got the right mental makeup to deal with what Bethpage is going to be. So now we've got, how many? We got 7?
We're
8.
on 8, I think now. Yeah.
Okay. I'm putting Lucas Glover on my team because I think much like Daniel Berger, I think, I don't know if I'd put him in the middle of the lineup. I got to have a point out of you.
Is this tied to the fact that he won obviously at Bethpage at the US Open?
No doubt. There is some of that. And that crowd's going to be similar. That was wild during that US Open. That was pretty crazy. So what's our number now?
We're on to 9.
We're at 9. I'm putting Keegan Bradley playing on my team.
Wow, okay. Now that's a big call. Okay.
I am, because I think he's got great backup. He has the ability to separate, kind of compartmentalize. He's got Webb Simpson in his back pocket as an assistant, and Webb is rock solid. He can handle this sort of thing. Akshay Bhatia.
Okay.
I think the kid's primed to do something pretty spectacular. Are we one more?
Yeah.
I feel sort of duty bound to point out that at the moment, I don't think we've got Xander. Is that right, Sam?
No, he's in the
second.
He's in the qualifiers,
Yep,
right?
yep.
You know
He's
what?
second.
I wish I hadn't said anything now.
That's a hard one.
Have we got Xander's buddy?
What, Colt?
No, Patrick Cantlay.
Well said. Funny.
This is the thing with the American side, isn't it? Like,
I know.
You take any sort of 12 of 25 players, and you've got a really good team. But I think actually it's getting that way with Europe now. There'd just be probably more Europeans who haven't got the experience.
I'm going to put Patrick Cantlay in there because I was ball striking. I think it's a hard golf course, and he's solid. So yeah, Xander's buddy, yes, but I think he's risen to the occasion. If he gets a hat that fits, he's fine. No, that's I think, but this is where we're at because of the European domination on the PGA Tour so far this year until Scottie came back to life again. Like, there weren't a whole lot of points that were distributed on the American side. Scottie wasn't playing Scottie golf. Xander was hurt. So there were, Cantlay didn't get off to a particularly good start for this season. So there's been some other players that have started to move up, but they haven't had a whole lot of points. There hasn't been a lot of volatility because they haven't gotten the job done. I mean, the Europeans played so well at the beginning of the season, there just wasn't much point disbursement.
Forgive me for saying it, Dottie, but hopefully that continues for another 4 or 5 months.
I knew you were going to say that.
Switching again, if we may. I've not got you for long, so I want to cram in as much as possible. How much has the women's game changed since you left it on a professional playing level? Obviously a lot has happened in those intervening years, and right now it sort of feels like it's ebbed and flowed a little bit even in the last 3 or 4 years. But how would you sum up how things have changed and the general health of the LPGA Tour in particular?
Well, you need a lot more pages in your passport to play than when I played. We played, I played what's then the Weetabix British Open. I just because I thought it would make me a more complete player. Went to Canada and went to Japan. Those were basically the times that we were out of the country for those events. Korea started to come in So the LPGA's schedule a little bit later, not kind of 3/4 of the way through my playing career. But I was the player who actually finished second to the first South Korean winner on the LPGA Tour in 1988. My rookie year, Ohiku birdied the last hole at Phoenix, and I was one group ahead, and she made birdie at Phoenix to win it. Started to crack the door until Sayri Pak opened the floodgates, and that has been pretty steady stream of players, of very good players, great players since. It has I don't think they've maximized the opportunity that women's sports in the United States and across the world are really experiencing right now. I think the Olympics definitely helped. If anything, it was probably one of those sports that was helped most by becoming part of the Olympic movement. And I think whoever takes this job has to make things happen genuinely and happen quickly, because they've lost momentum.
Yeah, it feels that way, doesn't
Yeah.
it? Do you think? I suppose we've got with the Olympics now, potentially the mixed pairs event might be
Yeah.
the thing that it needs, and it's in California as well, right? So
Yes, that will certainly help.
Yeah, and staying with the women's game, obviously at the point that this is going out, it's US Open, US Women's Open week.
Right.
Last hosted the men's US Open in 2017. Just
Mhm.
wondering if we could get your pick to win it, and maybe a long shot.
Um, My long shot would be Lindy Duncan, who played so well at Chevron. And I've had an eye on this youngster. Well, she's in her 30s now, but had covered her when she was went deep at the U.S. Women's Amateur when it was at Pumpkin Ridge,
Mhm.
and I was just really impressed by her demeanor, by the way she dug in, and seemed to be a grinder. Smart girl coming out of Duke. Was really happy to see her play as well as she did in a big sort of event. Favorite to win? My goodness, Gino.
Okay.
This kid is
Yeah.
playing phenomenal golf, and there seems to be a joy with how she plays that maybe is missing from some others. And she's kind of cool to watch her go around. There's a flair about her, and there's a fun about her that I think is kind of it can it's catchy.
definitely.
You think that game will suit Erin Hills?
Yeah, I do.
Probably suits a lot of courses, but yeah.
Yeah, right. There's not a whole lot that can go wrong there. It travels well.
I know Sam is desperate to get onto highest bidder, which we will do in just a couple of minutes. But one more question. I need to ask you about the bear, Dottie.
The bear.
The bear. I'm sure every time you go on a podcast or whatever, someone mentions the bear. But if you could share your encounter with the bear with our listeners, that'd be great.
So, 2008, the U.S. Senior Open was at Broadmoor. We're up at elevation. We're in wildlife territory, and there'd been a drought, which is not abnormal through the middle of the summer in Colorado at elevation. And there was actually a note passed along in our production memo. I was with NBC at the time, to be aware that there had been a mama bear and her cubs that were even in the television compound at night going through the garbage bins. And earlier in the week, they had come down and raided the 10th tee, where they had food left for the players. There's a bowl of fruit and snacks, crackers, whatever, and that was destroyed. So everybody was just kind of aware that the bears were around. They were coming down from elevation to try to find food. And we go to break, and I hear Gary Koch saying, and then a couple of the camera operators had said, the bear is over on like number 11. I was like, oh, well, I'm on 14. That's a long ways away. Fine. Kind of forget about it. I'm out with Tom Kite, Tom Watson, and Bernard Langer. And we go to break next, and I just scream into my microphone, You guys, it's the bear. and he was coming barreling directly at me. Came over this bunker, over this rise, and was coming directly at me at full speed. And I was just like, I could not remember whether you're supposed to stop and drop everything or if you're supposed to run. So I did both. It was, I still have, apparently Bernard has the photo in his office. I have it in my office. And he was huge and gorgeous. So he's black, probably weighed in the area of 350 pounds. He comes across and you can see the sunlight just filtering off him. It was like purples, greens, when you get a paint color that's got all of these different colors as the sun moves through it. It was like you understand why people will want to reach out and touch them because he was absolutely stunning. He went past me into the gallery, and they ended up tranquilizing him and taking him back up later that afternoon into the higher elevation. But the line of the whole experience was Roger Maltby. I had on a pair of white trousers and a red shirt, and he said, "Kid, it was a bad day to wear white." I said, "You're darn right it was."
Oh, fantastic. Well, we are going to do a little game called Highest Bidder, Dottie. I haven't told you about this, but...
No, I have no idea.
The way this works, simple trivia, I'm going to give you a topic, okay, which is about your career, and you have to say how many you think you're going to get right, okay? So you might say, I'm going to get 5, or I'm going to get 8, and then once you've given your bid, then you have to go in and see if you can match that bid. So your topic is going to be this. You made your Solheim Cup debut in 1990, okay?
Mm-hmm. We all made our debuts then.
Sorry, what was that?
We all made our debuts then.
Right,
was the first one.
Good point.
Yeah.
How many of the opposition team, including the captain, can you name? So first, just tell us how many you reckon you can get.
Wow. I bet I could go solid 6, maybe more.
At least we've got some ambition here. Some of our guests have disgraced themselves with very low.
No.
Very low guesses.
So Mickey Walker is captain.
Yep.
Laura Davis.
Of course.
Allison Nicholas.
Yep.
Chris Johnson.
Yes.
Lisa Neumann.
Yep.
Yes.
So
we just need 2 more, I think.
No, one more.
Oh, one more, is it? There you go.
Pam Wright.
Yes.
Who played singles against Betsy King, and Betsy thought she hit it into the water left at Lake Nona, the 18th hole, and kicked her visor all the way down to when she realized that the ball was actually in play. Mary Laura De Lorenzi.
Very good. Yeah.
Excellent.
Very good.
Who did I miss?
We have a new leader in the celebrity guest highest bidder table, and it's not even close. So well done.
Who did I miss though?
Helen Alfredson.
Alfie, of course.
And Dale Reed. And that's it.
Dale Reed. Okay.
That's a great effort. Well done.
All right.
Well done.
That was excellent, Dottie. Well, let me just say, firstly, thank you so much for joining us, Dottie. It's been brilliant hearing your insights about your old career, new career. I think we all enjoy listening to you. We hear less of you this side of the pond than obviously in the US, but we still hear plenty of you, and we're big fans. So thank you for joining us. I'm going to say for our listeners, we are launching our Slice newsletter this week. So if you haven't already subscribed, please do. There are links out on our socials where you can sign up. So please do join us on there, and we'll be back next week. Thank you very much for listening.